Okay, look closely. Why doesn't Skarner's W deal damage on the left side, but on the right it does? And how does this work? Well, in this video I will teach you all the advanced tips and tricks of reworked Skarner. So let's start with the passive. Skarner's auto attacks, Qs and R apply stack of quaking to a target for 4 seconds. And enemies with 3 stacks will take max HP damage over time. Skarner's passive is a great counter versus enemies like Shaco. Actually, it counters him in 2 ways. It counters his invisibility if you can proc your passive on a Shaco because it will deal damage for the whole duration of your passive, revealing an after image of Shaco. And secondly, it counters clones since the marking of your passive will show you who the real one is and the fake. Spell shields won't prevent the passive's application from basic attacks, but it will prevent it if the passive would be applied through abilities. Attacks blocked by Shen will still apply passive stacks. Attacks that are dodged by the target or missed while Skarner is blinded, however, do not apply stacks of Quake. But I found 2 ways to still apply passive stacks through blinds and dodges. But let me first tell you how the Q works. Skarner rips a boulder from the ground, empowering his next 3 auto attacks. You can recast your Q at any time, making Skarner throw the boulder instead and making an end to your Q. So how can we apply passive stacks to Jax and Teemo? So for Jax, if he uses his E, just attack a target close to Jax and the AoE damage of the Q will apply all the passive stacks to Jax as well. What about Teemo, since attacking a champion next to him won't do much because all your attacks will just miss the target and you will just waste your Q? Well, I'll explain that near the end of the video. Once you pick up the boulder, the Q cooldown starts ticking down, so you can pick up your Q in between camps to increase your clear speed. Attacking jungle plants and wards will not waste any of your 3 empowered Q attacks and it will reset your Q timer. Now something even better. You can prolong your Q duration while using E, which pauses the Q cooldown for the whole E duration. So for ganks, you can literally pick up a boulder while walking towards the lane you want to gank, maybe attack a jungle plant for the Q timer reset, go in for the gank and have a second Q instantly ready after the first one is used. You don't even need ability haste to do this properly. With Skarner, his new rework, all his skins got some nice updates. And would you believe me if I told you there's a way to get any skin and even orbs you want for almost half the price? Just go on bestbuyloot.com and there you can find everything for way cheaper prices. And it gets even better, because by using code Canon10 in your shopping cart, you can get 10% off on top of that. And you are supporting this channel in the process. If you have some questions, you can always ask them in the comment section and I will make sure to reply to all of them. Now back to the Q tips. While your Q is active, your next 3 auto attacks have also increased range. So that means you can hit enemies over small walls. The Q throw will cast at the end of your flash animation. So this is an ability you should rather Q and then flash with and not vice versa. And if you time your flash just right, you can do this. This is something that can happen with almost all the skill shots in the game. Flashing at the very end of his skill shot animation will cast the skill shot from your new location, but it will look like you threw the projectile before you flashed. Your Q attacks are considered an uncancelable windup, meaning these attacks can hardly never be cancelled, so even if you flash mid-auto attack, it will still go through. Enemies with spell shields will still receive all the damage from your Q, but throwing your Q makes it more like an ability than auto attack, so that's when it will get absorbed by a spell shield and deal 0 damage. Now his W. Skarner slams his claws into the ground, shielding himself while also damaging and slowing all enemies around him. Why doesn't Skarner's W deal damage on the left side, but on the right it does? Well, there's a W bug where if you W while an enemy is inside you, he will receive no damage. On the right side I used my W slightly next to the target, but on the left side I used it flat on top of him. The hitbox should low-key look more like this. There's not much to talk about his W. This is legit one of the simplest abilities in the game. The W shield starts at the beginning of the cast time, which is nice, and just like his Q you can buffer your W with flash. And oh yeah, it also scales with AP, so full AP Skarner perhaps? Now it's time for the E tips and tricks, but before I continue, can I please ask you to subscribe if you like the video so far? It's free and I wouldn't mind if you would unsubscribe later if you don't like my future content. Thank you very much. So now let's talk about his E. Skarner charges forward, during which he ignores terrain. If Skarner collides with an enemy champion or large monster, he grabs them for the time of the remaining charge, and if Skarner then collides with terrain, the charge ends. First, it's important to know what the enemies can see while you use your E. Enemies cannot see Skarner while he's inside terrain. unless they grant sight into the area of terrain he is inside, like for example with Quinn's Hawkshot. However, enemies will be notified when Skarner is inside nearby terrain while within a certain distance of him. An indicator will be visible to the enemy player's perspective to represent this. Using your E inside a big wall and cancelling it will make you dash outside the wall instantly, and I promise some enemies will really not see this coming. Colliding with an enemy that is already in a wall like Kane for example will instantly stun him in an awkward way. Riot called it kissing. Spell shields will just cancel your E, making an end to the travel as well. Skarner can move up to 550 units outside of Summoner's Rift. Once he passes it, Skarner will teleport back to the nearest available spot. For his R, Skarner lashes his stingers forward in a cone, dealing damage and impaling up to 3 enemy champions, attaching them to Skarner for 1.5 seconds. Holding a Q rock while using your R makes you smash it into the enemy, making an end to your Q. With this in mind, you can apply your passive to a target while being blinded. We already know how to have a Q ready after using your first Q thanks to your E. So you can throw your first Q, pick up another Q boulder and use your ultimate all while being blinded, making you apply all your stacks. The only ability you can use during your R is your W. So start casting your W at the very end of your R to slow and damage the enemies instantly after your R ends. After stunning an enemy with your E, you can land one more auto attack before using your ultimate and it will still guarantee to hit the enemy, assuming it has no tenacity of course. There's a way you can get 3 attacks off during the E stun, making this the highest damage Skarner combo while also guaranteeing your ult. So use Q, charge into the enemy, auto attack, instant auto attack reset with Titanic Hydra, and R, making sure you throw the rock in the process, and then W at the very end. Items are still usable during your R, so hey, AP Skarner is even more fun now. Thanks for watching and subscribe to not miss a future video.